Welcome to Politalks. My name is Mara. Today in our show we have a Kristyn Wong-Tam, the city councilor for Waro 27. So welcome to the show, Kristyn.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's start with some questions. When did your political activities begin, and what were some of the reasons that inspired you?
So my political activities began largely when I was 16 years old. I was just coming out of the closet as an LGBT person, and I was also very much acutely aware of my environment. My mother and father, working class people, were immigrants to the country, and they were very much experiencing a lot of racial discrimination. So I was always aware that I was not quite Canadian enough because I was born overseas. English was my second language, and I also watched them struggle. So by the time I came out of the closet at age 16, what I realized was, boy, not only am I dealing with racial discrimination and gender discrimination, I'm also queer and LGBT, which sort of puts a target on your back. So there was no reason for me to not stand up. I had to stand up and rise just to defend myself and my family. But it became much bigger than just me, and just became bigger than my family, because I realized that there was racial and gender inequality across the city, and I wanted to do more about that.
Yeah. Oh, so strong, right? Why did you first decide to run for the city council?
It was 2010. I'm a community organizer by nature, so things I've started in the local community that I lived in at that time included the Church Wellesley Village BIA, so I started a whole business association. I also worked to build a neighborhood association because I wanted the neighbors to cluster together, because there were stronger voices when we were together. And once we were together, we were louder, we were more focused, we were more energized, and we did that largely to sort of push for sustainable development that would include affordable housing, development that was not going to tear down beautiful heritage assets. So I was able to sort of take my natural community organizing, community empowerment skills, and I thought, if there's a way for me to scale that up and then to represent a larger community than the one that I was in, maybe I could add something to the political discussion. And I did, and after a very long fought battle, I was a first-time candidate with no, a lot of name recognition. I wasn't a chosen one. I was not the favorite going in, but I did have grassroots support, and I had a proof of delivery that I can get things done, and I won after a very tough election in 2010.
Yeah, understand. So what is the role of the city councilor, and what do you enjoy the most about the job?
I think I made the role fit for me. So I think some people will say it's to represent government to the people. In my case, I actually very much am keen on representing the community and the people to government. So therefore, we become an advocate for the community. We make sure that the community voices that are not represented at city council, because it is incredibly white, it is incredibly male, it is incredibly straight. I want to make sure the diversity of the community, which is the beauty of the community, was going to be represented right in the halls of decision-making power. And it's either, if you don't include us, then it's not for us. And so that was something I really felt very strongly about, and I've continued to work on that model of engagement and decision-making ever since.
That's nice. Try to feel like the voice of the city.
Yes, one, to be the voice of the city, but really I wanted the people's voice to be amplified, because there are many places that we are not permitted to go. And as someone who actually came to Canada in 1975, Regent Park was my first home. So I'm actually a former Regent kid, as some people might want to call it. And I actually attended Spruce Court Public School. So it was actually here, in this particular neighborhood of Regent, that I actually discovered my Toronto identity and eventually fell in love with the city, starting from this neighborhood and then out. It started here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you feel are the challenge of this work?
It's a very big and complicated ward that I represent, and we have a wide range of political interests from different neighborhoods. Sometimes we represent some people who have a lot of influence and a lot of money, and corporate interest is always trying to get government to give them more contracts and to give them, more glass towers. And I think that, the voice of the people sometimes get lost if we're not better organized. So the way I see it is my job is to make sure that the doors of City Hall are wide open from the front, the back, the side, and the roof blown open, because if we're not actually in government, forcing government to make decisions that are good for the people, which means better, more opportunities for jobs, safer streets, building healthy, beautiful green parks for children to play in, making sure our community services are going to meet people where they are, then we're not making government work for the people. And if government doesn't work for the people in the community, then the question must be asked, who is government working for? And so I'm very interested in making sure that government works for you and your family and exactly where you need government services to meet you at.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So what would you say are the 3 important success you accomplished in the role?
It's one thing I have learned is that it takes time to get things done. I was very impatient when I got into public office. I thought I can get everything done, but now I realize that it's a very large corporation and you need to bring people to the table, which means consultation engagement. Consultation and engagement by nature just takes more time. So the things that I've now learned is that it takes time to get things done, and if we don't measure the outcome, so therefore don't just have a meeting for the sake of having a meeting, make sure that we're always advancing to an outcome that everyone is in agreement of. And therefore, when we do make those positive results come out, we are all better for it. So the things that I'm very proud of that I've done in my time is I've actually increased the park revitalization. Most of the parks are under some type of renovation and some type of redevelopment, which means new playgrounds, new dog off-leash areas, and just new expanded park spaces, which I think we can all use, because I don't know about you, but I rent 640 square feet, and that has to include myself, my partner, and a dog. So when we need space, we have to go outside, and so the parks are a critical extension of our living room. The other things I'm really proud of is that I've fostered brand new relationships by building new affordable housing in the local communities. Artscape is now in the downtown east on the corner of Jarvis and Dundas, and they were never in Ward 27 before. I've also brought in Habitat for Humanity, where they're building family-size, affordable homes in a community tower at the corner of Sherburne and Wellesley. It's the very first time that Habitat for Humanity has ever been able to get into the core of the city. They've always built affordable housing outside. So those are partnerships that I pushed very strongly for, and I know that I've made a difference. And then finally, I think that I have really been the leading advocate at City Council around gun control. And it's not just around the recent shootings, but I've been actually at it for 8 years from my seat at Council, whether it was standing up to Harper on behalf of the City of Toronto to stop the destruction of the long gun registry, and then to try to save the data, the long gun registry data, and then ultimately now to make sure that the Trudeau government is going to now build a stronger gun control bill for the country moving forward, and that's Bill C-71. So my experience around community safety and community health actually has a bit of a long track record. And I know how difficult it is when you don't have government that works for the people, whether it's the provincial or national level or perhaps at the city level. If government's not working for you and your family, my family and my sister's families and the extended family, then again, the question is, who are they working for?
Well, that's amazing. Yeah. I think that each aspect that you talk about is so important. I think that all of us have been, interact with one of those aspects, even if it's the park or if we're feeling safe in the city, or these kind of things are so important. So thank you, because you've been working in that.
Yeah, no, thank you. And it's actually my pleasure. Sometimes it doesn't feel like work when you actually love what you do.
Yeah.
And there are days where, I'll be honest, there are days where sometimes I get very defeated thinking, why am I not making more of a difference? Why can't I do more quicker? And then I go out and talk to people and they tell me, you know what, things are changing. Sometimes it doesn't feel fast, but recognizing that together, understanding that we are stronger, makes me feel better at the end of the day. So I draw my inspiration and strength, to be quite honest, from community members. Yeah. So thank you. In every
yes, but
way.
you're living this like a real citizen. You're working this like a citizen, like watching for.
Yeah, you know, I really believe in active citizen and active citizenship. And it's not just a phrase, and it's not, you don't have to have a citizenship to be an active citizen. To be an active citizen or an active resident is someone who cares deeply about their community, cares deeply about their family, and is willing to work with their neighbors and their community to make it better overall. Whether it's making sure that the environment is going to be protected, by making sure that we all have opportunities for jobs that will pay us a decent wage so that we don't have to work 3 or 4 jobs, making sure that the communities that we live in are going to be safe, that children can walk the streets without having to be scared of being hit by a vehicle, and making sure that women are going to be protected from violence. Like, we all have a responsibility, and I honestly believe there's actually nothing that we can't do if we as citizens and residents are working together with the same values, hoping to have the same outcome. We live in the greatest city in the world. Like, there's no reason why we should fail.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. So what do you feel are the most important issues facing your constituents and the city as a whole?
I think right now affordability and livability are probably our biggest challenges. I have, and you know, this is coming from someone whose parents were really working class. My father was a hotel worker. My mother worked in factories. And I never knew we were poor, to be quite honest, because there was always some food on the table and we had a roof over our heads. Maybe we didn't have a single new piece of furniture, but what I knew about my family is that they were always going to be there for me. So to me, when I think about families today, including my own, my sister has moved to Niagara Falls because childcare has become so expensive in Toronto. And the cost of housing has become so expensive that in order for me to see my nieces and nephew, I now have to travel 90 minutes to go see them. So the issue around affordability and livability in Toronto, if it's not affordable and if it's not livable, it has real human impact. And by way of seeing my own family move away, because Toronto became unaffordable, they could not buy a home for themselves the way our parents, even though they were working class and poor working class, they were still able to, because Toronto was still affordable at that time, they were able to scrimp and save enough money to put a modest down payment on a property and then eventually build a home for us. Those opportunities now have become very difficult to obtain for working families, and I think that is what's actually hurting the city in the long run.
Kristyn, how do you feel that citizens can be involved in this issue?
Well, I think citizens, number one, and citizens and residents should never wait for government. They have to start organizing from within, locally, and build the strength from the core, and at some point in time, the power will shift. Right now, I think sometimes residents are scared of government, but we need to turn that paradigm upside down and make sure that government is scared of the people. And they'll only be scared of the people, only act in the interest of people if the people are organized.
Yeah, that's a so interesting point, yeah.
Yeah.
So there is anything more that you would like to share with us today?
It's been an absolute pleasure to be here. I think that my own early roots, it almost feels like a full circle coming back to Regent Park. I actually love it, and this has been a fantastic interview. You've been amazing.
Thank you so much. So this is all for today. It has been a pleasure to talk to you, Kristyn, today. So thank you so much for coming today and have this interview with Regent Park.
Thank you.